Okay, who are these two new gentlemen in class?
I'm Josh.
Josh,
Another Canadian.
another Canadian. I won't hold it against them. I won't hold it against them.
Good question.
Adriel
He
from.
needs to make passport. I need to submit.
Okay, why are you guys in this class? I'm just asking. You're more than welcome.
I'm usually in the 11th grade class, and he's been gone, and I don't know. I was there the last time, and it just wasn't.
Okay, so that. Okay,
I thought might as well.
the Seder. That's the same. So it better be exciting, huh?
Yeah, someone Robert Silver. Robert Silver is like such a good.
Oh, hi guys. Nice to see you. Forgot you were here. The memory of a fish. Just everything's new. It's wonderful. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Rabbi, you living as well for a few days?
I'm leaving in the end of next week, not now.
Are you going to the Kines?
No. Going the week after the Kines. Our grandson is having a bar mitzvah in Crown Heights.
Awesome.
My wife and I are going to have a good time, hang out with the grandchildren, daven in 770. Good time will be had by all. Baruch Hashem. That's what they say, right? Your reward for not killing your own children is grandchildren. That's the bumper sticker that used to be in America. I know you couldn't have it anymore because no one has a sense of humor, so they think that you were serious. But there used to be such a bumper sticker. Yeah. Senses of humor have disappeared. Yeah. Okay, we're in Ois Ches. The Rebbe has told us something quite astounding at the end of yesterday's shir, that every single action that we do, ultimately, the source of it is Etzem and Neshama. Is Mesiras Nefesh miYechidah Sheb'Neshama. That's what the Rebbe taught us, which is really quite astounding. And now all of this is in order for us to understand how really even the milchama is shalom, even the war is peace, right? Which of course seems like a rather ridiculous statement, but that's what Chazal say. Chazal don't exactly say the war is peace. They say the milchama is chalta the geula. It's the beginning of the redemption. It's the beginning of the peace. And the Rebbe is now connecting the avodah mitzad milchama, which we said was tefillah, and the avodah mitzad that's a function of peaceful, calm elevation of the world, which is learning Torah. You're sitting in your living room and you're talking with a cup of tea and maybe even a rugel. I don't know. Right? You might have 3 cups of tea. Who knows? You have this cup of tea and this cup of tea and this cup of tea. Sitting quietly in your living room learning, and while you're learning about all these things in the Torah, you're elevating that state of reality, even though you're not encountering it directly. Even though that reality might be a completely negative reality. It might be a reality about people lying in court regarding their attempt to steal money from someone else, right? Based on false claims. Right? So you're learning about that, and that's a horrible situation, but you don't have to deal with the horrible situation, but you're elevating the reality of such a thing by virtue of learning it in the Torah. So that we learned earlier in the Maimer. That's the birur, the rectification of reality, ba'ifin shel shalom, peaceful. Poda besholom nafshi. The milchama was davening, as we talked about. Now the Rebbe told us this chiddush in Ois Ches, that really even the milchama is shaykh to shalom, that all levels of avodah is shaykh to Poda b'shalom. And so far, how is that? That is because every single level of avodah comes from, ultimately, the true source of it is Mesiras Nefesh from Yechidah Sheb'Nefesh. We talked about that yesterday. The fact is you don't have to do it. The reason you're doing it is because you're essentially connected to godliness, and that is penetrating into your conscious reality and bringing about some act of connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Even the most mundane expression of that is a seemingly mundane and simple expression of that. Even those things the Rebbe said that you might do even if the Torah didn't tell you to do it, because it's just a reasonable thing to do. Still, the ultimate source of you doing it is Etzem and Neshama. And what comes from that place? Peace. Shalom. Why? Ask Tzvi. There's no opposing force on that level. I don't want to say there's no Yechid in Nefesh Bahamis, I'm going to get struck by lightning, but there's no, basically there's no Yechid in Nefesh Bahamis, meaning there is no state of being of the Nefesh Bahamis that is in any way, shape, or form in opposition to the essence of the godly soul. That place in you is a place where there is nothing but godliness. Azoy v'nit andrish. This is the way it is, and there isn't another way. Right? And if that's revealed in your conscious reality, then your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu is completely and totally unbreakable. Now, our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu is unbreakable, but it just might be unbreakable on the level of the essence of our soul, and not unbreakable on the level of my conscious everyday life. The level of someone's conscious everyday life can be an absolute disaster in terms of their relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Well, it might be that no one ever told them about a Kadosh Baruch Hu, no one ever told them about Torah, no one ever told them anything about anything. So their essential reality is completely and totally connected to the Eibishter, but their revealed reality is exactly the opposite, which is not a healthy situation. Right? It doesn't produce healthy results. Okay. But now the Rebbe told us that every single thing that you do in terms of your relationship with the Eibishter is coming from that place. So it's all besholom. Now, how does that work? Let's see. Okay, page... We made it through page Kafeh. Now we're on page Kafu, which means frozen. Right? Without it, there's an aleph in frozen. Okay. Vagam, Kuf Pei Vav. End of Eisches. Vagam. Even though the Inyan of Mesiras Nefesh and Mavur B'Maimer the Bala Geula, even though the Mesiras Nefesh that's described in the Maimer of the Balagula that the Mitler Rebbe describes in his Maimer, which this Maimer is based on, which we know, right? Because this Maimer is celebrating Yud Kislev, and Yud Kislev is the day of the redemption of the Mitler Rebbe. And what does the Mitler Rebbe say about that? About Mesiras Nefesh? Hushan is Batlu Kol Ritzoi Nesav. That a person reaches a state that all desires other than a desire to be connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu are completely and totally nullified. Va'ad, until he reaches a state, and the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote a whole kuntras, wrote a whole piece called Kuntras Ishtavus. He explains the inyan of Midas Ishtavus. And what's Midas Ishtavus? Midas Ishtavus is, what's the root of the word? Shaveh. What does Shaveh mean?
What?
Okay, it's worth, that's true. You're right, Taka. We saw it in terms of our fields. Right? It also means equal. Right? That everything is in a state of absolute equality. What? That one sees godliness equally in absolutely every situation. Which is relevant to these parshas. We'll talk about that in a second, what the Mitler Rebbe says about that. But first, let's just finish the line. Everything is in a state of absolute equality. Yesh leimar, one could say, shekola dargis the Mesiras Nefesh hemin echad. Therefore, all the different levels of Mesiras Nefesh, even though we said there are different levels of Mesiras Nefesh, there's Mesiras Nefesh that could be intellectual. We said that's the Mesiras Nefesh that causes the nations of the world to give up their life for their country. Makes sense. They've come to the intellectual conclusion that that's a reasonable thing to do, and it's an amazing thing to do. Kol hakavod. Right? There's the Mesiras Nefesh of Chai Yeshe B'Nefesh, that the person's ratzon, their desire for elokus, their superconscious desire for elokus, coming from Chai Yeshe B'Nefesh, is so powerful that it overcomes the ritzonos, the subconscious ratzon of the Nefesh Bahamis for something other than elokus. Okay. And then there's the highest level, which is Yechidah B'Nefesh. And that's the level where there's no opposition. It's not that I'm defeating something. There isn't any opposition. The only thing that exists is the Neshama and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. There isn't anything else. And that's the level of Yechidah B'Nefesh, and that's the highest level of Mesiras Nefesh. And that's usually, when you read the stories of those heroes that were held captive by the savages in the south, so you're struck by this unbelievably powerful connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's unbreakable. And they didn't even know about it until they reached that situation. Right? And what did they all say? They all said, made it. They made it. The decision is made in conscious reality, but where's the decision coming from? I'm a Yid. And a Yid can't be disconnected from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And where they came face to face with a force trying to disconnect them very, very powerfully. And that aroused in them their essential connection which is really quite astounding. And these people were the stories they're telling, like stories of Hasidim of the Rebbe Rashab in the gulag of Stalin. And these people didn't learn it then Mimi as a preparation for all that. Okay. Just Bechlal, the Indian of Ishtavus, it's an important thing. It's important because it also happens to be our Parsha. Because Sari Imenu reached the state of Midas Ishtavus. That famous conversation that happens at the beginning of last week's Parsha between the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Sari Imenu. Right? The Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu that he and Sarah are going to have a child. Sarah is told by Avram that they're going to have a child. And what's her response? She laughs. Right? Okay. Now, what was Avram's response when he was told in the previous parsha?
He also laughed.
He also laughed. Right? Did the Kadosh Baruch Hu say anything to Avram Avinu when he laughed? No. Did the Kadosh Baruch Hu say something to Sarah when she laughed? Ooh, wow. This whole bizarre conversation. Right? Which, obviously this is the Eibishter and the whole, the mother of us all having this conversation that sounds like a conversation in grade 3. You did, you didn't, you did, you did, you didn't, right? It's like a very bizarre conversation. You laugh. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. So the Mittler Rebbe has quite an astounding explanation of all of that. Sarah Imenu was on a higher level than Avram Avinu. Sarah Imenu reached the level of what's called Midas Ishtavus. Sarah Imenu reached the level where she saw God equally in every event in her life. There weren't events of greater revelation or lesser revelation. Godliness was, just as the Rebbe said, Inyan Ishtavus, which comes from Etzem and Neshama. Because Betzem and Neshama, everything's Eibush. Avram Avinu was not on that level. That doesn't mean Avram Avinu wasn't a big tzaddik. He was a big tzaddik, but he was not. There were certain things that Sarah was. It says that Sarah was greater. Navi, it says that Sarah. Avram Avinu is told to listen to everything Sarah tells him. Right? We talked about this earlier. The whole book of Bereshit says husbands listening to wives on how to bring up their children. Right? So listen to your wife. Right? She might turn you into a mensch if you listen. If you don't listen, you'll be just the same moron you are now. Excuse me. We all start that way. We're men. Men are moronic. Men end up with their bochrim in yeshiva, and then they get married to normal, healthy people, and they normal them out after a while. They teach them how to be normal, healthy people. They're called women, and they're different than men, right? They don't leave their underwear on the floor and their socks on the lamp. Right? They're like normal people. Right? And they train us after a while. It might take 40 years before you're going to pick it up and put it in the laundry bin, but sooner or later, you won't just throw it over there. You'll actually, okay. So Sari Imenu is on this incredibly high level. And so what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu say to you? You laughed. In other words, you experienced a level of joy based on this information that you just got, that you're going to have a child, that took you to a higher level of joy than you were before. Amazing. What's wrong with that? So Kadosh Baruch Hu was surprised, so to speak. You laughed? You think there's more me in having a baby than in not having a baby? You're going to be more connected to me now than you were before? You were always on the level where you saw me equally in absolutely every single situation. So this news has actually caused you to descend a certain level in your avodah. So Kadosh Baruch Hu calls her to task. Says, you laughed. She said, I didn't laugh. When she says I didn't laugh, what does she mean? I didn't laugh because I didn't believe. I laughed because I was besimcha. Of course I believed that this was going to happen. And the Abraham says, no, but you laughed. You? This conversation did not take place with Avram Avinu, but it took place with Sarah. That is the Mittler Rebbe is actually our Rebbe, right? There's meaning the Rebbe that's the Rebbe of this mimer, right? Who that's his pshat in the whole story of Sarah and the Eibush, which is just an unbelievable story, and that's Midas Ishtavus. So the Rebbe says that since the inyan of Mesiras Nefesh is that a person comes to a state of constant, equal experience of Elokus in their life and sensitivity to Elokus in their life. So then the Rebbe says that means that all levels of Mesiras Nefesh are really one, and that's what we were talking about. We're saying there's higher levels, lower levels. Well, okay, that's true, but ultimately they're all coming from one place, Yechidah Shebenefesh. So let's see, why is this important?
Does that still exist for your analogy about people in the military, like even Goyim, who are...
Goyim don't have Yechidah Shebenefesh.
But they're experiencing this, like, self-sacrifice.
Yes, intellectual. It's not going to come from anywhere else by then, right? Okay. But the Yid, the Israeli soldier who tells you he's willing to die for his country, and you could quote him, and you could put a quote from a Marine and a quote from him beside each other. They look exactly the same. Where's his really coming from? Is he necessarily aware of that? No. Okay. And that doesn't mean that Mesiras Nefesh is coming from Seichel isn't a bad thing. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. But most Israeli soldiers won't tell you Mesiras Nefesh mitzat Seichel. They just don't say it.
You're talking Neshama? When we're talking about Seichel?
They'll talk about something a little more centered on the nature of the Jewish people, etc. You know, the soldier who will talk about what. The soldier's not interested, so he's not interested. Right? Okay, I'm here because they forced me to be here, and I'll just do what I'm told to do. Okay. The soldier isn't. Very rarely is an intellectual. He's got some connection to something that he understands is a deeper part of him that's connected to everybody else around him, and they're called Jews. There's something about that. He might not know what that is because he's never been educated to understand what that is, or he's been educated to not understand what that is, ultimately, unfortunately. Education is brainwashing, right? That's what education is all about. You can be brainwashed to understand good things. You can be brainwashed to understand not such good things. But education is, you're trying to brainwash. Brainwash has a bad rap. But when you're educating your child, what do you want your child to do? You would like your child to think the way you do about the things you care about. Is that fair? Of course that's fair. You're allowed to do that. It's a perfectly reasonable thing, right? So what if you think that being a liberal is the best thing in the world and that everybody should make up their own decisions and there's no absolute truth? Then you will educate your child. You will brainwash your child to think that that's the way it is. So I'm not brainwashing. I'm letting him be open-minded. You are making sure he's open-minded because that's what you believe in, which is perfectly reasonable. You're allowed to believe in that. Right? But that's no more open-minded than teaching the kid that he has to keep Shabbos or he's chayiv koros. I mean, if that's the way you do it, which isn't the way you do it, but I mean, if that's the way someone does it, if you don't do that, God's going to punish you. Well, whoa. Why is teaching him to be a liberal more open-minded than teaching him that if he doesn't do that, God's going to punish him? Both of them are interested in their child having the same basic view of reality that they do, which you're allowed to do. That's what education is, right? Most Jews don't send their kids to Muslim schools, and most Muslims don't send their kids to Jewish schools. Why? Well, I don't want my kid to grow up a Muslim. I want him to grow up a Jew, and I don't assume he wants his kid to grow up a Jew. He wants him to grow up a Muslim. He's allowed to do that. Just don't talk about killing everybody else, and we'll get along, right? Just that's the problem we have with you guys. You want to be a Muslim? That's good. You're the only large group of people in the world that aren't idol worshippers. Well done. Good job, Muslims. You're allowed to walk into a mosque. You can't walk into a church. You're allowed to walk into a mosque. You can't walk into a conservative synagogue for a different reason. Not because it's a Avodah Zarah. It just shows, it seems to be that you're showing support for something that's, a movement against Torah. That being said, it's Chas v'sholom, it's not Avodah Zarah. A church smacks of Avodah Zarah. They might have him hanging there. There's all sorts of stuff going on in there. What? Well, he was one of us, right? I mean, we should all be able to do that, right? It's not like he was the only one. He's just the only one that made a religion out of. They did that to all sorts of people, right? They just were into that, the Romans. Okay, they made a religion out of one of them. Okay. So to the Rebbe says, Val derech yadua, back in the Maimer, third line. Val derech yadua be'inyan yira. Fear. Kaven the yira he bittel. The Rebbe is now going to say that yira also, every different level of yira, and there's all sorts of different levels of yira. We'll talk about that outside, but let's just read the words first. They're all ultimately the same. And that's an idea that's found in Chassidus in general. What the Rebbe is saying here about Mesiras Nefesh is a shtickle chiddush. The kaven sheyira he bittel. What's yira? Bittel, shlilas amatzias, the negation of your own existence. And again, we've talked about this so often. What bittel is. Bittel doesn't mean you don't exist. Well, I mean, on some level we don't, obviously. But bittel doesn't mean that we're unimportant and irrelevant and just should sit and drool in a chair. Bittel means that the focus of our lives is not our existence, but God's existence. Because our existence is existence with a small e, and God's existence is existence with a big E. So do I want to be connected with absolute truth, or do I want to spend my life dealing with some level of truth? Because it's definitely true we exist, but it's only relative. It's not absolute. Right? No, I want to be connected to absolute truth. And what's that? That's called bittul. That your agenda in life will be the Eibishter's agenda, not your own agenda. That takes time. That's not something that a person figures out in a week. Right? And so that's the basic tenet of Yira. What is Yira? Yira, Chassidus points out, is Eisius Re'iyah, the same letters as the word to see, sight. What's Yira? Yira is sensitivity to God in your midst. So now that can express itself that the lowest level of Yira is Yiras ha'oinish, I'm afraid of the punishment. The highest level of Yira is I'm awestruck by the majesty. You're boishus, I'm just overcome by his greatness. And there's all sorts of levels in between, obviously. All of those ultimately, the Rebbe is saying, and this is something that's talked about in other places in Chassidus, are one because they're all based on one basic appreciation of the fact that there's an Eibishter and it's about him. So even Yiras Ha'inish, which is the lowest expression of that, what am I aware of? That the Eibishter is here. And so a person might be, even if you describe that as afraid of the punishment, that's how it's basically described, afraid of the punishment. It's the lowest level of Yira, but it's a level. Because what am I aware of? This is an Eibishter, and he's involved in everything I do, and he's right here, and he's watching everything I do. So the same way I'll be insensitive to the existence of the cop because my Waze just told me police ahead. So I'm sensitive to and I'll slow down, and you'll notice that traffic comes to a standstill because there's a cop driving on the highway, and everybody's driving the speed limit because he is. And when he goes faster than the speed limit, everybody speeds up again. And okay, worst thing for traffic is a cop on the road. Okay, why? Well, because everybody's aware of his existence. Everybody's afraid of getting a ticket. Okay. So now what if I were that sensitive to Elokus? That means I'm a pretty special person. It's only a fear of the punishment. Halavai, that's the first level of Aveda, to be actually aware of the fact that the Eibishter is around and watching what we do. Again, not worried about getting the strap because I did something wrong, but sensitive to his existence. And what will that bring about? Less sensitivity to my own existence, right? I won't be so in tune with myself. I'm very in tune with myself. Right? We don't have to be so in tune with ourselves. We have to be in tune with God. Right? If you talk to Californians, I'm very in tune with myself. Oh, that's good. That means you're completely and totally absorbed in self. That's good. That's a good guy. That's good. Oh, that's the kind of person I want to be.
Would being to that point of being in awe of the Eibishter, would that be interfering in the aspect of Ahava as well?
It's beyond Ava. Yira, Ava, Yira. The 4 levels of Aveda. The lowest level, the most basic level. When we say lowest level, that means but it's a level. Anything lower than Yiras Ha'inish is not a level in Avodas Hashem. I haven't even started. Right? That's the basic level, is that sensitivity to God in our presence. And that means that, and that's going to produce a Kabbalah soul. That's going to produce a commitment to do what the Eibishter wants. That's the first level. Are there levels beyond? Yes, but it's all based on that. It's all based on that sensitivity. That might produce, hopefully, love. And then an even higher level of love. And ultimately that could produce the highest level of Yira. You ever been to Niagara Falls? The Canadian side? No, it's bigger on the Canadian side. You're also closer on the Canadian side. I've actually never been on the American side. I've just seen it. But it's this little teeny thing, which if you fell in, it would break your bones. But relative to the one on the Canadian side, it's just right. So the Canadian one is I remember I was there as a kid, but I don't remember. We took our kids there, and it's the first time I was ever there as an adult, and it struck me that this is a mushal for Ava and Yira. This thing. Because when you're far away, you have this tremendous desire to get closer because it's just magnificent. It is pashut magnificent. And I always thought I was going to have to pay to go in to see something, and it's on the street. You're just walking along the street in this city called Niagara, Ontario, and everybody's going and you just don't pay any attention to them, and you walk along, and as you get closer and closer, you start getting a little wet. Because the water, even though it's falling, how far down there? It's got to be 100 meters at least down there, right? It's way down. But the water is hitting there, and the spray is coming up on the street, and so you start to get, not wet, but damp. I mean, there's mist. There's mist. There's a boat called Maid of the Mist, which goes down there. That's for other people. So I'm sure it is for other people. So you walk closer, and you're drawn to it. But it's so fascinating when you see the people right next to it. They're all holding on to a bar. Their knuckles are white. They're holding on with their hands are probably in pain because they're holding on with, and generally, most people over 8, the 8-year-olds are looking over and their parents are going, don't look over right there, because, I mean, there happens to be some stone right there that if you wouldn't necessarily die, but the stone is all wet. It'd be very hard to stand on that stone. I would assume you'd slip. And if you slip, you're a bag of bones in no time. So everybody's standing like this because it's so powerful that you realize how small you are. Really, I mean, if you picture yourself in there, you are, the power of the water coming over that falls is a level of power that you will not see almost in any other place that you've ever been. It's just absolutely astounding how powerful it is. And you realize that were you in there, you wouldn't last a macrosecond. It would just tear you to pieces because it's so powerful. And people are standing like that. So their first desire is to come close because it looks so beautiful and so incredible and so amazing. And it is. It's just majestic. But as you get closer and closer, that love, the desire to be closer, turns to awe, which is, wait, if I go there, there's no me. And that's yira lo. That's the highest level of yira, where when the person pulls back because they're so awestruck by the majesty of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I mean, God looks nice and cuddly from afar, evidently, right? And He is. He's very worthy of our love. Right? And we are supposed to bring ourselves to a point where we appreciate that even if we might not actually experience the emotion, that we understand intellectually that God is worthy of our love and we should love Him. And if we do that, we've been Mekayim the mitzvah of Avos Hashem according to the Alter Rebbe. Right? Even if we don't feel the emotion yet, hopefully we will feel the emotion, but it might be our love for ourselves gets in the way of our love for Kadosh Baruch Hu. And you're supposed to love yourself. It says, love your fellow like you love yourself. Okay, so there is an idea of loving yourself. What does that mean relative to other people? Well, if you're hungry, what do? You give yourself food. If you're cold, what do? Give yourself a sweater. If you're tired, what do? You give yourself some sleep. Okay, so if you see another Jew who's cold, what do? Give him a blanket. If you see he's hungry, what do? Give him food. If he's tired, what do? Give him a bed. That's take care of another Jew like you take care of yourself, because you love yourself, and you're supposed to love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, and you don't take care of yourself, that's a serious disease. It's not healthy. Okay, now, but that love for self shouldn't be an obsession with self. It just has to be a basic health that I'm going to take care of myself. Now, why ultimately, why should a yid take care of himself? And based on this mimer, why are we taking care of ourselves? Because the Eibush said, you should have to take care of yourself. You have to be healthy and take care of yourself and eat properly and sleep properly, etc., because you have all these things to do called mitzvahs, and you have to fix the world. And you can't fix the world if you're a mess. Okay, so you have to take care of yourself. So where's that coming from ultimately? Yechidah Shabbat based on what we just read. Okay. So it shouldn't be coming from the fact that I love myself because I'm pampering myself. It should come from myself that I love myself because the Eibush told me I have to take care of myself. Okay, but what should I love more? The Eibush. What should you also love more? Your wife and your kids. Less than the Eibush, but more than yourself. Right? Okay. And then you'll probably have a pretty good marriage if you love your wife more than you love yourself. Especially if she also has the same feeling about you.
If she doesn't, it might be a frustrating experience, I would imagine. Right? You're going to love your children in a way that you've never experienced love before. You're going to love your children more than you love your wife on a certain level. Your connection to your children is immutable. Your connection to your wife is theoretically not. Right? Something in the Torah called a get. Then you're never allowed to talk to her again. Right? It's not a good idea to talk to an ex-wife. Right? You had rather powerful relationship before, so it's not a good idea to have a relationship with that person after it's already broken up. Okay, you're gonna have to talk to each other about certain things, I'd imagine, just children, etc. That, but it's not, don't be friends. Torah says you're not allowed to be friends. You weren't friends. You were husband and wife, for goodness sake. Now you're gonna be friends? Give me a break. How do you do that? Unless you were never husband and wife, you were just friends. Okay, so I guess that would be okay. Managing what's going on with the children, okay, I guess you have to manage what's going on with the children. But Torah tells us to stay away from that person because we had an incredibly powerful relationship with that person and we don't want to do things that are not permitted. Okay, so the relationship with your children is going to be incredibly powerful. Your relationship with your God is going to be even more powerful than that, hopefully. Because your relationship with your children is going to be completely and totally illuminated by your relationship with your God. And what you hope to accomplish with your children by virtue of your babysitting them for God for the first, however many years of their life. So it'll be that they turn into people who care about the Eibishter. And then you did a good job. They care about other people. They care about the Eibishter. They're productive adults in a healthy way. Oh, good for you. You did a good job. Now you can enjoy the grandchildren. Right? Who you have, Baruch Hashem, no responsibility for. So it's very nice. Right? You just enjoy them without all the hard work. So what's Yira? It's Bittul, back to 4 lines down on that page. Right? Yira is all Bittul. So all the different levels of Yira, even though we just talked about different levels, the lowest level and the highest level and all sorts of levels in between, all of those ultimately are coming from the same place. Bittul, an appreciation of the fact that my life is about the Eibishter and not about me, and sensitive to him in my midst. That's Bittul. And that means my life is not about my spiritual growth. Doesn't mean I shouldn't grow spiritually, but that's not what life is about. Life isn't about spiritual growth. Life is about God getting what he wants from you. What does he want from you? Well, he's sort of demanding, You ever notice he's pretty demanding? Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your everything. Oh, is that all? That's all you want? On the other hand, if you can tell me something you have that didn't come from him, so then I guess you could then argue that there's something that I have that doesn't have to be connected to him. But there isn't anything. So it's a two-way street. He gives us everything, so he wants everything in return. And that's what's best for us, but we do it because that's what he likes. It's all one. It's all bittul. It's all ultimately an appreciation of God's existence and presence in our midst. Every level of Yira. Al derech zeh, so therefore the Rebbe says, similarly, yesh lemer b'inyan of bittul de mesiras nefesh. So too, the level of bittul of mesiras nefesh, of self-sacrifice. Even though there's different levels of self-sacrifice, which we've been talking about, all of them ultimately come back to the same point, an essential connection to the Eibishter. V'adarabah, kevan shah bittul de mesiras nefesh. Since this bittul of mesiras nefesh, hu mitzad klolus ve'etzem nefesh, it's coming ultimately from the general and essential state of the soul. Udeloi kahabitl, and not like the bittul of Yira. What's different about the bittul of Yira? This is a very subtle point, but very important. It's a long discussion that isn't our discussion right now. Shehirak mida achas. That's only one particular aspect of your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Yira. And as was asked, well, wait, what about Ava? Okay, right, there's Ava too. There's a different expression of your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And Yira and Ava are two completely different things. Right? Av is your desire to be close. Yira is your appreciation of the your Yira is more properly translated as awe, as opposed to fear. Pachad is fear. Right? So if yira is fear, but it's fear that you would understand is happening from a conceptual appreciation, meaning, so to speak, it's happening in the brain. Pachad happens in the heart. Right? Fear, the fear that we describe as, sometimes you might wonder, it says yira v'fachad, like what's the difference? So generally, Chassidus explains, the yira is in the head, is the appreciation, is the conceptual appreciation of God's presence, which causes a certain awe and fear. Right? Okay. Pachad is an emotion. It's in the lave. And it can be positive. But really, yira is more properly translated as awe. The loika bittul de yira shirak b'midachas. Yira is one particular aspect of your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Very important, incredibly important, but only one particular aspect. Mesiras nefesh encompasses everything that you do because it's coming from Yechidah Shebenefesh. Hare inyan zeh, this idea, shekol dargas heim inyan echad, that all the different levels of Mesiras Nefesh are really one. The Mesiras Nefesh, who oid yeser, is even greater miyasher b'yira than it is in yira because it encompasses your whole being, whereas yira is expressing a particular aspect of your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu and a particular aspect of your neshama, gevura, as opposed to gedula, chesed, ava. Incredibly important and necessary, but still ultimately one particular aspect of your relationship. V'yuven zeh al pi mashal mimalchusa da'ara, and this can be understood by virtue of a parable from earthly kings. Now, army. Kisha'adam nichnas letzava, the person enters into the army. Af shedayin lo yishiris b'tzava, even though he hasn't actually served in the army yet, right? But he entered into the army. Valachas kama v'kama, and all the more so shleya b'milchama. He wasn't in a milchama yet. He hasn't served. He hasn't done basic training, but he's a soldier. He's a soldier in the army already. So what's his as a soldier? He's a proper soldier, right? We're talking about a real soldier. So what's his reality to his present situation? So the Rebbe says, "Hu meiser es atzmei legamra." He gives himself over completely, und wird ois balabayas auf sich, and he stops being the balabayas of his own life. Who's the balabayas of his life now?
His general.
Whoever is if in basic training, the kid who's going to be his immediate officer, is going to make his life miserable for the next however long, right? Now that guy is teaching you how to do certain things, right? I remember when we were in the army, so our basic training was basically a joke. It was a bunch of old guys. I was the youngest guy there. I was 28, 29 maybe, and. So our officers were 20-year-old Israeli kids who told us later, we got along very, very well and developed a good relationship. And they, the first day, this is the first time they'd ever had older guys. And they told us, 2 weeks in, they said, we were just scared stiff of you guys. You were all our father's age. And we were like, busy ordering you around. We don't know what to do with you, right? So we put on this macho thing that we were, but they were, they would say please and thank you, guys. Do it, and we would. Like, you didn't have to scream at us. Like, they figured out after one day they didn't have to scream at us. We do what they want without screaming. With 18-year-olds, you have to scream. There were other 18-year-olds in the base getting screamed at. These poor kids. What they did to them was a Shrek, and we were just, we used to. All of us knew a famous old movie from when we were kids. It was called Bridge Over the River Kwai. It was about English prisoners of war in some Japanese prisoner of war camp. And they had a song. They used to whistle. Da-dum, da-da-da-dum, dum, da-da-da. They would whistle this while they walked through the camp all the time. That was in the movie. So we would all whistle this as we were walking through the camp. All of us were busy. Like we were in a Japanese prisoner of war camp or something. But anyway, they treated us very, very nicely. But when we schmoozed with them, we talked to them about their experience in the army and what their basic training was like. And they said, well, it wasn't like yours. I said, yeah, we know that. So I said, what was it? I said, well, it was pretty hard. And then at the end, the last, the 2 days of our basic training, so we went on a march. Now, a march is you're not walking, you're sort of trotting with all your gear on your back, which is 25, 30 kilos. And the heavy guys who can't do this, right? So they're on stretchers because they can't do this. So they go on stretchers, and everybody else is carrying the stretcher, and you're switching who's carrying the stretcher, and you're basically jogging from Yerushalayim to Chulon. Chulon is next to Tel Aviv. It's about a 40, 45 kilometer, 50 kilometer jog with 25 kilos on your back and some fat guy in a stretcher that you're schlepping because he'll die on the way. So he said, so what was he? Well, he said, well, basically, you want to die in the middle. You're in such pain that you just want to die. Because but you have to just keep going. There's no choice. And you just keep going, and you make it to the end without dying. He said, okay, so no. He said, well, then you realize that there's nothing you can't do. If you have to do it, you just have to do it, and you can get it done. Doesn't matter what it is. So he said, well, okay, you were a soldier. When did that ever happen? So there were two of them who had been together in basic training. They've been together in the army. They've been together with us. They were ending. These guys were finishing their 3 years. We were the last thing they were doing. Their best friend had signed on to be an officer, so he was going to be in there for at least another year, and they were all making fun of him because they were going home, and he was in for another year. But in all fairness, he had a better job with us than they did. But, so he said, so no, when did this ever, what happened? I said, well, we were in Lebanon, and we were under fire for about 36 hours straight. It's hard, you can't go to sleep when someone's shooting at you. If you go to sleep, you might not wake up, right? So you just have to stay awake. Like you have no choice. And you keep, trying to stay awake and shooting back and trying to kill them before they kill you. And we were in a firefight for 36 hours straight, and we stayed awake for 36 hours straight. And the reason we were able to do that, because they taught us, if you have to do it, you just do it. You can't. So that's a soldier. Whoa, we were impressed. I must say, we were very impressed by these kids. These guys they were very impressive 20-year-olds. There's just no doubt about it. Right? They really were. They're also very, very nice and sweet, and they were just nice kids. But, that's impressive. Halavai. Well, the yeshiva, the Rebbe Shab opened called Temchei Tamimim. Right? We're going to celebrate the Rebbe Shab tomorrow night. It's his birthday. Tomorrow day, for bring tomorrow night. So the Rebbe Shab who opened Temchei Tamimim, so his yeshiva was like that. His yeshiva was basic training, and he said that to people. We talked about it, I think, before. He said it to people and said, "This is your basic training because the difficult times are about to come. And what were the difficult times? The Russian Revolution. You're going to have to stand up to very, very difficult things." And they did. The Tamimim did. We'll talk about that in the Forbidden tomorrow night. But that's a soldier. That's what a soldier is all about. Halavai, that yeshivas could pull out the inner strength of the Jews in them like the army does. We can't. Why? Well, I thought people just leave. I'll go to another yeshiva. Why are you bothering me? Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Go somewhere that doesn't expect so much from me. Leave me alone. Right? So you can't. Right? The army can. Where are you going to go? Another army? Well, you can't go to another army. We'll put you in jail if you leave. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. But really, what Halavai, we could be chayalim, like the chayalim are chayalim, right? The chayalim are these guys are heroes. They're serious guys. These guys. Is that what you should be doing? That's a separate issue, right? No, you should be sitting and learning Torah right now. Especially that's what you should be doing. How? With the same complete and total devotion like they do. Whoa, imagine what I could accomplish. Imagine if I could get to a point, what happened to that guy? What did he say to us? He said, they got us to a point where we realized that if this has to be done, there is no alternative. Okay, well, that's what the Rebbe is talking about, Yechidush B'Nefesh. Right? If serving the Eibishter has to be done, so then that's just the way it has to be done. There is no other way. Heard an interesting story on Shabbos about a very, I'm not going to say his name, a very famous shaliach, who was responsible for getting the menorah, the Chanukiah, lit in the White House, right? Which is a good thing, And he was there with Jimmy Carter in the White House. And it was the 5th night of Hanukkah. And they had two menorahs. They had a big one, a big one with electric lights, and then they had a little menorah, like a real menorah with candles. So in the Oval Office, they lit the little menorah with candles. And there were 5 candles because it was the 5th night. And Jimmy Carter said, "Why don't we add candles?" I said, "Well, it's the 5th night. We can't add candles." No, but the whole idea is to spread light. Let's add candles. So they lit 8. There were 5 up there. He lit 8. He wrote the Rebbe about what happened by the President of the United States. Told the Rebbe about lighting 8. The Rebbe wrote back to him and said, "I'm so surprised that you have no pride in being a Jew." It's the 5th night of Hanukkah, so the President of the United States tells you to light 8. God told you to light 5. Why in the world would you light 8? The Rebbe gave it to him over the head. You have no pride in being a Jew? The Rebbe called it Gaon Yaakov, right? Gaon Yaakov, the pride of being Yaakov. There was Al Pi Seichel, he figured out. Tonight's 5. There's no 8. 8 doesn't exist. Right? There is no 8. There's no. It's just imaginary that there's 3 more things on the menorah. They don't exist yet. Yeah. Tomorrow, the 6th one's going to come into existence. Right now, it's not there. That's the way the Rebbe looks at that Chanukiah. Jimmy Carter looks at it differently. Of course, Jimmy Carter looks at it differently. Right? He sees peanuts. Right? Okay. Amazing story. Okay, let's go further. A little bit. I know it's Monday. If we're lucky, so Eliyahu will show up. Not that we don't love saying Kaufman, but, hey. Right? So the Rebbe just said, we're 5, 6 lines down, the brackets. Right? So 6 lines down. So the Rebbe just said that whereas Yira is one, there's an idea in Chassidus that is well known, that all levels of Yira are one. So now the Rebbe is telling us that all levels of Mesiras Nefesh are ultimately one. They're all coming from Yechidush B'Nefesh, from the essence of the soul. Right? And it's even more powerful by Mesiras Nefesh because that's an all-encompassing reality, whereas Yira is one particular aspect of your relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, one particular midah. And now the Rebbe is bringing the muscle of a soldier. So the soldier enters into the army, and what's his whole mitzias? He hasn't done anything yet, but he's got on the uniform. It's the first thing you do, right? You go to Bakum or something, I don't know what it's called. You go to Bakum, and they give you a uniform, and it's really wonderful because they line you up, mamish line you up. You go past the curtain, they pull down your pants, boom, they stick something, boom, give you a shot, off you go. You're like a cattle in there, right? Mamish, one after the other. They give you these pants that have buttons that no one can figure out how to put up, do up, and so you're standing trying to do up your buttons for about 4 hours. People are trying to figure out how to do up their buttons because they're so tight. And then you go to your base and you haven't done anything yet. But what are you? You're already a soldier. What do you know? I'm finished. They tell us right now, we've been doing this whole thing. It's 7 o'clock at night and we don't have a clue what 8 o'clock is going to hold. No idea. It has nothing to do with me, what's going to happen at 8 o'clock at night. Only them. They decide 8 o'clock at night we're going to go for a run, so we go for a run at 8 o'clock at night. What are you going to do? Right? Who makes that decision? Not me. I'm completely and totally not in control. Okay. That's a soldier. Now, a person can embrace that, or a person can fight that. If they fight it, they lose. Mm-hmm. 4 lines up from the bottom of the paragraph. So too in the spiritual army. We're the army of the Eibishter. That which every single Jew, he has literally an acceptance of the yoke. What does that mean? He has a commitment. He's committed to the Eibishter. The beginning of every relationship, the commitment to the Eibishter. He's committed to something beyond himself. Kapitgama Yadua, like the well-known statement, a Yid is a Kabbalah Solnik. A Yid is someone who has made a commitment to the Eibishter. And that commitment drives everything he does. Like a husband who's committed to his wife and a wife who's committed to her husband. What grows out of that? Love, hopefully. So too with the Eibishter. But the basis of the relationship is not love. The basis of the relationship is that commitment. Because the love can come and go. The commitment never goes. In this way, he's entered into the army of the Eibishter. And by virtue of this, he gives himself over completely to the Eibishter. U'mesira zu, this giving over, hi kshura, it's connected, u'meir ba, and it shines in it, ha-mesiras nefesh, mitzad yechido, the mesiras nefesh is coming from the highest level of his soul, but darga achi ne'elis in the highest level. It's all one. Even though this might be expressing itself in a very, very basic way, he's made a commitment to something that doesn't necessarily understand, right? I mean, a person says, okay, I think I'm going to be a religious Jew. Okay, good. What does that entail? Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure of everything it entails. How am I supposed to know what it, And then all of a sudden, 2 months down the line, he learns, now we do that. Yeah, we do that? Oh, well, that's interesting. Did I know that was part of the deal? I didn't know that was part of the deal. Yeah, we do that. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. No showers for like 9 days? Yeah, we do that. Don't eat meat. Can I change my socks? Yeah, I can change your socks. Just put on dirty ones. No. We're not so crazy about it as they were in the old days. Okay, because we're all what's called an istinus. An istinus is someone who's particularly fastidious. Now, in all fairness, in the old days, how often did people shower or bathe? Not very often. There weren't showers in the mikveh. If people went to the mikveh every day, there weren't showers in the mikveh. There weren't showers, right? They just went to the mikveh, they went in, came out. That's why the mikveh was nice and brown, right? I guess you came out with, you came out with a slightly different fragrance than you went in. There's people who splash stuff on now, but, they didn't have that those days either. Okay. So how often did they actually take, what you and I would call a shower? They would bathe. Okay. They'd go to the bathhouse, Erev Shabbos, right? Okay. So the 9 days for Tisha B'Av, so showering is osir. Showering is not osir. We shower every day, so we're allowed to shower every day. You just don't do it in water that's extremely pleasant, because you're not supposed to bathe in a way that's all about the pleasantness of bathing. So don't sit there and go, shower. No, you don't shower that way in the 9 days. You turn on the water, it's a little less warm than you like. Might even be a little chilly. Okay, it's Av, it's the middle of the summer. Don't complain if it's not exactly burning hot, right? It's 40 degrees outside, right? So sit on this and wash yourself up and get it done and go into the mikveh and then be done. Okay, we do that. Right? We do these strange things of putting on our clothes right before, so when they don't wear completely clean clothes, okay. We do all sorts of bizarre things. So the person finds out that what? I have to put on my shirt. I wear how many shirts you wear in 9 days? 4, 5. You'll change every second day. Fine, okay. So put on 5 shirts, and so they won't be brand new out of the laundry when you wear them during the 9 days. What? We do that? Yeah, we do that. Really? Yeah. Oh, that's weird. I agree. That's fairly weird. Okay, but say to Asma, what do you care? If you're a soldier, what do you do? Well, that's what we do. Okay, so that's what we do. A little strange? It's a little strange. You're going to shake a green stick and a lemon with this very serious look on your face. That's also a little strange, but that's what God wants, so that's what you do, right? If that's what He wants, that's what you do. And we enjoy it. We love it. The amount of time people spend, how many people did you show your esrog to? Oh, I got such a nice esrog this year. Look at my esrog. Everybody might, you want to see, you're on a bus, take out your esrog. You want to see my esrog? Right? Nothing like the esrog. On Tu B'Shvat, on Chamish Yisrael B'Shvat, the 15th of Shvat, what are you davening for? Your esrog, your matzah. Right? You're davening for all these things that are going to happen through agricultural reality, because it's the Rosh Hashanah of trees. So they say you daven for the wheat to grow, so you'll have beautiful matzahs, and for the esrog to grow, so you have a beautiful esrog. Your lulav, look how straight this lulav is. Look at that. Can you believe that? Oh, look at that lulav. That's unbelievable. Yeah. Oh, the shivra moves just a little at the top. Yeah, I know, right? But it's good. No, yeah, amazing. People think we're off our rockers. Who cares? It's what the Eibishter wants. So you do what the Eibishter wants. What you want, I don't know. Is that the mamish? So now, what do we try to do? And over time, it moves. The dial moves a little bit in the right direction over time. What do we try to do? We try to get our will and the Eibishter's will to be the same. It might very well be that there comes, when Sukkot comes, what you want more than mitzad your own mitzias. What you want more than anything else is to sit in the sukkah, shake lulav. You're so excited about doing that. It's so much who you are. Okay, amazing. Might be that at the beginning when you did it because you were told that's what you do, okay? But at a certain point, it becomes so much you that you're Pashut excited. You can't wait to get to Sukkot. We talked about it. Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev was told Rosh Hashanah that he was going to pass away very soon. What did he ask the Eibishter? He pleaded with the Eibishter, just give me one more Sukkot. Just let me live until just one more Sukkot. I want to shake lulav. I want to sit in the Sukkah. One more Sukkot. Passed away the day after Simchas Torah. The Eibishter gave him one more Sukkot. Just wanted one more. Just let me sit in the Sukkah once more. Let me shake a lulav once more. Right? What's better than shaking a lulav? Anything better in life? Sushi is better than shaking a lulav? Give me a break. Raw fish gives you stomach cancer. God forbid. Highest rate of cancer of stomach cancer is in Japan because they eat raw fish. Raw fish is very bad for you. Right? Okay. Most sushi today isn't real sushi, right? But the Japanese eat all this raw fish. Over the charts, highest level of stomach cancer. Not even close. Sushi. Ooh. It's become the thing. You know. Is there going to be sushi at the Kiddush? Yes. Oh, sushi at the Kiddush. Wow, good. Amazing. Is there going to be good scotch? Ooh, good scotch.
Now it's meat boards also.
That's what?
It's also meat boards now.
Meat boards? Oh, you mean in Karina? Okay. Enough of me ranting and raving over here. Have an amazing day. We'll see you tomorrow morning. My son got me these fancy shirts when he bought shirts for his wedding. He got me fancy shirts that have these things in the collar, so it fell out.
Sure, college days.
He says, "Yeah, collar, stickers, whatever,
Metal,
whatever." It's all rusty, probably from them.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Okay,
What was
hold on one sec. Let me stop this. How do I stop this? Hello, hello. What do I do? My tuck. I'm sorry. Up here.